Monopoly. If I say board game, what would you think? I'm betting you that you probably think of Monopoly. It's very popular, known for being the board game that the Beatles play at their first US tour. Most likely have Monopoly, or if not, you most likely have played it. But how did it get this popular? How did it get it so big that almost everybody has it in their home? The board game Monopoly has its origin in the earliest 20th century. The earliest known version of Monopoly, known as the Landlord's Game, was designed by American Elizabeth Magie and first patented in 1904 but existed as early as 1912. Magie, a follower of Henry George, allegedly intended the Landlord's Game to illustrate the economic consequences of Ricardo's Law, or economic rent, and the George's concepts of economic privilege and land value taxation. A series of board games was developed from 1906 throughout the 1930s that involved the buying and selling of land and the development of land. By 1933, a board game has been created much like the version of Monopoly, sold by Parker Brothers and its related companies through the rest of the 20th century and into the 21st. Several people, most likely in the Midwestern United States and near the east coast of the United States East Coast, contributed to the game's design and evolution. By the 1970s, the idea that the game has been created solely by Charles Darrow had become a popular folklore. It was printed in the game's instructions for many years, and in 1974, a book devoted to Monopoly and was cited in the General Book about toys, even as recently as up to 2007. Even a guide to families games published for Reader's Digest in 2003 only gave credit to Darrow and Elizabeth Magie, erroneously stating that Magie's original game was created in the 19th century and not acknowledging any of the game's development between Maggie's creation of the game and the eventual publication by Parker Brothers. Also in the 1970s, Persephone Ralph Anspach, I probably totally messed up his name, who had himself published a board game intended to illustrate the principles of both monopolies and trust busting, fought Parker Brothers and its then parent company, General Mills, over the copyright and trademarks of the Monopoly board game. Through the research of Anspach and others, much of the early history of the game was rediscovered and entered into official United States court records. Because of the lengthy court process, including appeals that the legal status of Parker Brothers, copyright and trademarks of the game was not settled until 1985. The game's name remained a registered trademark of the Parker Brothers, as do its specific design elements. Other elements of the game are still protected under copyright law. At the conclusion of the case, the game's logo and graphic design elements became part of a larger Monopoly brand, licensed by the Parker Brothers parent companies onto a variety of items to the present day. Despite the rediscovery of the board's early game history in the 1970s and the 1980s, and several books and journal articles on the subject, Hasbro, which became Parker Brothers' parent company, did not acknowledge any of the game's history before Charles Darrow on its official Monopoly website as recently as June 2012, nor did they acknowledge anyone other than Darrow in materials published or sponsored by them, at least as up to recently as 2009. Well, we've been through all of it, to court battles and to the history of it. So it's very important that we look into this because there's been false accusations and false everything. You don't really know the true history. I try to put as much as research as I can to the true history. So if I got anything wrong in this video, I'm sorry, but that's the end of me, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.